After over 200 episodes, recording for hundreds of hours, and spending thousands more with some of the most elite sales professionals in our industry, we bring you Sales SOS. We go one-on-one to share the trade secrets and the most profound takeaways to help you transform your career.
In this episode, we answer 4 critical questions.
What is the common thread with every top-tier CRO?
I think one of the concepts, was a bit of an epiphany moment around kind of 6 months ago when you and I were really kind of just talking through that. And we kind of stumbled across this concept of career champions, right? And everyone in this industry knows what a champion is. But actually, at the most fundamental level, the only way you can be pulled up is if you've got people that are pulling you up with them.
Why are you being overlooked for promotions?
It's not uncommon for individuals to reach out to us, not due to performance, but maybe because they've been overlooked for a promotion. Why do you think some people are being overlooked for these promotions, even though they're excelling in the roles that they're doing?
How can you position yourself as the irresistible first pick?
Getting a CRO role is probably not as difficult as one would think, right? There's plenty of startups out there. Most, very good account executives can go and land a startup head of sales role and find themselves in a CRO role.
How do you break that glass ceiling?
But actually, again, if you look at those that break the glass ceiling, the ones that really make it to the top, they will all say,
This is Sales SOS, and we are Hunters and Unicorns.
Sat in the seats that we're in, right? We're now over 200 episodes into talking to some of the most profound leaders that have accelerated their careers and got to the very top of their game, right? What would you say, are some of the fundamentals, and what are some of the reasons why people have been able to, climb the levels that they've been able to climb?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point because we've been trying to connect the dots for a while. We're asked that question so many times. Why is it that certain people reach the highest levels? And what are the common traits? What are the common themes that we see? And I think one of the concepts, was a bit of an epiphany moment around kind of 6 months ago when you and I were really kind of just talking through that. And we kind of stumbled across this concept of career champions, right? And everyone in this industry knows what a champion is. But actually, at the most fundamental level, the only way you can be pulled up is if you've got people that are pulling you up with them. And I think that the people that generally, or the professionals that we see scaling their career and reaching the highest echelons, they haven't done that alone. They've done that because there are people there that are fundamentally invested in their success. And a champion is exactly that. Are they selling when you're not in the room? And in terms of, the concept of champions, I think that seems like a very basic concept, but actually when you're assessing an organization, it's not just about looking at one champion in isolation. It's about looking at the chain of champions. So if you start looking at the org chart and you look all the way to the top of the chain, if you've got a chain of champion and those champions are championing each other, and you're part of that chain where you're saying, I'm willing to do what it takes for me to be successful, but actually if I do that, then I know that these people are going to help pull me up with them. When you start looking and you assess your chain of champions, if at any point of that chain, there's something that's not quite right, or one of those is not a champion, or they're not at the level, there's going to be turmoil. So actually, fundamentally, one of the concepts that I think we've really landed on is the idea of you have to focus on being part of an organization where you have got these champions and they are truly invested in you.
Yeah.
Because without that, your career, you will plateau, or you will outgrow an organization and you'll end up having to seek other routes until you find those champions. So I think, in terms of that influence, what we're you look at some of the highest performing, sales organizations, you look at the org chart and they're tight. You look at Wiz, you look at the group that they've created
MongoDB,
there. MongoDB, the App Dynamics crew.
Datadogs.
It doesn't matter. There's always a common trait where you see those leaders that come through that can, that are really invested in the success of their teams, and they create that loyalty. That's the momentum which essentially starts to pull them up. But again, if you're looking for a role and you're looking for an opportunity, you can't be looking at just the technology. You can't just be looking, those things are fundamental, but ultimately it's all about, career trajectory is all about the people. And that's why we see so many people take backward steps or perceive backward steps to be part of the organizations at the right moment, the right time, because actually having the right champions that can pull you through, I think that's so fundamental.
Yeah, could completely agree. So big part of it is probably a lot more to go into with regards to champion building. The other side to it, and I think, the interview that we did with Zahir Abdulwahab, which is about people wanting to rush their careers. What are some of the fundamental learnings that you've taken from, being a bit more patient and mastery of each of those different stages of development?
Yeah, I think that, anyone that's in sales is innately ambitious, right? They want to be successful. They want to grow. And I think that it's really easy for people to chase title or status. But actually, again, if you look at those that break the glass ceiling, the ones that really make it to the top, they will all say unequivocally that they didn't chase titles. What they focused on was skill acquisition at every stage. They always try to find people that can fill out the gaps relative to the direction that they're going. Now, in the early part of your career, it's a bit like going on a journey, right? You need to have the fundamental skills irrespective of what your journey is, okay? So whether you're trying to climb a mountain or trying to survive in a desert or a desert island, those initial skills are the survival skills, and that's pipeline generation and mastery of sales.
Yeah.
The early part of anyone's career, if you master those, it then gives you the choice to be able to say, okay, now where do I want to take my career? But unless you've actually mastered the ability to hunt and survive in the wild, it's really difficult for you to execute with any real distinction in the leadership. So again, we see so often that those that spend 5 to 10 years minimum at really mastery of the fundamentals is an important backbone. Once you then reach a certain level and you're thinking about, okay, I want to be a leader, you then have different options. Do I want to become a startup leader? Do I want to become someone that's kind of in a more established organization? And there's different avenues. Now, you don't even have to decide wholeheartedly where you want to go. But I think at that point, you can start to become much more intentional about the direction you want to take your career. And at that point, once you become more intentional and you start saying, okay, this is the direction I want to go, or I think I want to, you then start being more intentional with the type of skills that are missing and the types of leaders or the types of opportunities. But unless you've got a plan, and the plan could be, I'm still trying to figure that out, but at least you know what you're working towards, and becoming more intentional with that, I think is a really fundamental part of really kind of building a much more fulfilled career.
100%. And I think, the only additional caveat to add to that is that, testing and proving it in one organization with one technology in one area is not the answer in different areas, not just in one company.
Yeah. Well, I think, we talk about choices in our career, and actually, if we go back to the concept of privilege is about having more choices or more good choices to choose from. But fundamentally, the success that we have in our careers is the sum of all of the choices that we've made along the way. Now, some of us start with more good choices to choose from, and some of us, only have, and that is what privilege is. But the point that I'm getting about choices and privilege is that actually the more well-rounded you become, and the more you can survive with different scenarios, selling to different ICPs, different personas, different sales motions, exposure to different you've got more skills which you can apply. And again, you're then able to have more choices to choose from. And at the beginning of your career, being an eligible candidate to more stuff, because you've been exposed to startup or more established or more rigor, or it's an important trait. And then again, once you then start to become more intentional with the career that you have, you then want to become the most eligible candidate for the direction that you want. So you then really start doubling down on your startup experience, or whatever direction you want to be. But I think that really applying that mindset of really focusing skill acquisition and being well-rounded and having that exposure, irrespective of where you want to be, you have to be able to survive in the wild. You have to be able to hunt. As I say, PG will set you free. So these are some of the common traits that we've seen that really have helped the most, revered sales executives that have reached the highest echelons of our industry.
It's not uncommon for individuals to reach out to us, not due to performance, but maybe because they've been overlooked for a promotion. Why do you think some people are being overlooked for these promotions, even though they're excelling in the roles that they're doing?
It's a really interesting question, because you'd probably think that the decision around why people are promoted is performance related. The reality is that there's probably a lot more to it, and I think that fundamentally, if you look at the reason why someone is promoted, it is normally because it will enable someone higher up the chain to achieve their objectives, right? That's the only reason why, or most of the time, it's helping someone else much higher up the food chain get closer to what they want. So a lot of the time, if you are in that situation where perhaps you are being overlooked for a promotion, you need to really understand, well, how aligned am I to what's happening above me? And again, it goes back to the conversation of champions, right? Because ultimately, if for you to be promoted, someone is looking for you to bring some sort of value which is going to help them along the way. Now, yes, people are, you are finding that people are being promoted into seats where they're maybe promoting peers and stuff, but that's normally driven by someone above them. So all hiring decisions around promotions, it's normally and I think just really understanding, do I have champions? Am I the right profile? Do I have the right experience? Do I have? Am I a risk to someone's success higher up? Normally, the truth will be found in there, or someone's just got more invested champions that's kind of pulling them up on their journey. But that's normally where we find the answers.
Is there any other common mistakes that you see, or you've heard of through the interviews that, upon reflection of their own career development, they've made mistakes and there's common themes?
Getting a CRO role is probably not as difficult as one would think, right? There's plenty of startups out there. Most, very good account executives can go and land a startup head of sales role and find themselves in a CRO role. But ultimately, I think one of the most common mistakes is that if you do start chasing that, yes, you're going to get the title, but what you will find is that you will plateau. You will find yourself stuck in this kind of mediocre world where your ceiling is then going to be quite limited. And actually, You're going to have to learn and make mistakes, but you'll probably find yourself getting through this kind of cycle of doom where you're just having to navigate things that you didn't even realize. Working with founders is so difficult. And even if you're the best sales leader or the best sales rep, there's so much that you just don't understand until you've been part of that. And so we see this kind of trying to move too quick through your career without necessarily having the skills. Whereas those that really incubate their skills, work on the fundamentals, take steps forward, take steps back, become more well-rounded, but mastery of the skills at the different stages, building the right champions all the way to the top of the career, building fellowship underneath them, those are the ones that really reach the CRO status and the ones that are really the influencers and the most revered sales leaders on the planet.
One thing that they all have in common is to do well by others, right? And so John McMahon was talking about, always wanting to find people better than him, and people to surpass them. And it's interesting because the instant, I suppose, reaction to that is, well, if I make them better than me, then they're going to overtake me and I'm not going to be in line for that promotion. Whereas actually, by creating that groundswell takes you up with the wave by having that genuine intention of doing best by others and wanting to develop people better than yourself. So obviously, there is a lot more to talk about this. We've only just scratched the surface of these subjects. But look, if anybody, wants to know any more about any of these subjects, we're here to talk, right? We're here to support. This is what we absolutely love doing. So, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to share some more of our thoughts on this. I don't know if you've got any parting comments on that, Si.
Yeah, I think, just on that, I think, one of the things that we really try and do is just spend time with people and really before, when they come to us and say, I'm looking for advice or I'm looking for a next role, it is just about helping people just take a step back and say, why, and I suppose, that's something that we really want to help advocate. So if you are at a bit of a crossroads and you want to become a little bit more intentional, feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to help give you some more purpose and really ask you those difficult questions and support you with that. So feel free to reach out.
Exactly that. And if worst comes to worst, we'll be able to point you in at least the right direction of the right content, which is going to be meaningful and that we believe is going to be relating to your particular subject. So I hope you found this interesting. I hope you felt this a little bit more helpful. If you like what you heard, do please subscribe to our various channels on iTunes, YouTube and Spotify. All the links will be in the description below. And look forward to hearing your comments on some of these subjects.
This is Sales SOS, and we are hunters and unicorns.